All right. Let's see here. All right. Sorry for the slightly weird start. Good morning. Thank you for joining VirtualPBX admin training. If you have questions, feel free to use the chat box. You should see it to the right. I didn't notice that previously, so hopefully that's going to work properly. Anyway, let's go ahead and get logged in. And let me make sure I'm on the right thing here. Alright. So for your dash login, it's simply your email address. Let me try that again. Your password, and then your account name, which is normally your company name. This shouldn't actually let me in. Okay, so let's try something else here. All right, that's not working either. Oops. Okay, let's All right, there we go. Sorry about that. This newer interface that Google's making me use is not working well with my brain. So once we get loaded up here, get logged in, and you start off on your dashboard. If you're a new sign-up, you actually get opened up into the wizard. It basically gives you a rundown of basically like here's your account information, etc. But the dashboard itself, this is where you set up your system. You're basically fine-tuning everything. So right here we have your users. Every user on your account you're billed for, right? So if you add 2 more people, your bill is going to go up. And if you remove people, your bill will go down. Right? These are people that are making and receiving calls. Right? If you don't need a user if you just need a voicemail box to take a message. Right? That you just have a voicemail box for. You can just use, and by default, the account comes with the main voicemail box, which isn't associated with a user. So you could use that, for example. Total devices, these are all the devices you have in the account, and then a breakdown of the type that you're using. Cell phone is just an application, usually on a computer or a smartphone. Cell phone is pretty self-explanatory. A SIP phone is also called a VoIP phone, so voice over internet. And the web phone is a device that you use via your web browser. Unregistered means the system doesn't know that they're connected or not. So it's basically not going to be able to send calls to them. And that's usually for your VoIP devices. Over here, you've got your main number. Oh, and I think I actually clicked on it by accident. Yep, let's go back to dashboard. So these are your numbers that your customers call to get to your system. They're all going to route the same way, and they're going to have the same main greeting. Your fax box number, this is where people will fax documents to you. Total numbers, these are all the numbers on your account. Assigned numbers means these are numbers you're using, i.e. they go someplace. They're a main number, or they go directly to a user, or a queue, or a ring group, etc. Spare numbers means they're numbers on your account, but you're simply not using them right now, i.e. they don't ring to anything. But since they're on your account, you're still being billed for them. Just keep in mind that most plans come with between 1 to 3 phone numbers as part of their monthly cost. Once you go over that, by default, you're going to be charged $4.99. That may vary depending on, like, if you have international phone numbers on the account. And then we have a breakdown here. In this case, for this account, U.S. DID, so U.S. local numbers, and then U.S. toll-free. Your company directory, I have 10 people showing up in the user directory. That means of the 20 users I have on this account, only 10 did I select to show up in the user directory. I can change that at any time, as I so choose. Is basically didn't click the checkbox. And then you can download that this information. So if you need to give the extension user information and extension numbers, you can give that to your staff. The account ID, this long alphanumeric string, this is technically your account number. However, if you ever call into support or billing or what have you, we're not going to ask you for that number because it's kind of a pain to read that off. But we'll ask you for your company name. But if you ever need to write in, like, this is about this specific account, then you can give us that and we can look that up. Next item here is the account realm. That is used for a couple of things. Will be used if you're programming a third-party VoIP device, whether that's a softphone application like XLite from Counterpath, or a VoIP phone that we don't support via auto-provisioning. It is also used for email to fax. If you're sending a fax out, you use your email client, and your account realm is the domain of the to field of that email you're sending out. So basically, just so you know, format for sending out a fax is +1 and then area code and phone number that you're faxing to, then the out symbol, and then your account realm. Then you just simply attach a PDF or TIFF file. And then at the very bottom here, this is new. This is our store discount code. Just by being a VirtualPBX customer, you get a discount in our store. So if you need to order phones, etc., you get a discount. All right, up the top here, we've got your company caller ID. This is something the system will want you to set up on a new account, and we do recommend you do so. You can choose any of your main numbers. And then here's your company caller ID name. This is restricted to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters. That's an industry standard. Once you click Save, I believe it's at the bottom there. Yeah, Save Changes, excuse me. This information gets transmitted to the other carriers that support CNAME, and then they will update their servers. That process takes between 3 to 7 business days, although usually it's around 3. Some things to keep in mind about CNAME. One, and most important probably, not every carrier supports CNAME. So what that means if you make a call out from your VoIP phone, for example, goes out to one of your customers. If that call happens to route through a carrier that doesn't support CNAME, your CNAME information does not get transmitted to the person you're calling. And there's unfortunately nothing we can do about it. We can't make every carrier support CNAME. The other thing to keep in mind is even for the carriers who do support CNAME, it's their least priority, right? If they have a maintenance issue going on, they have an outage, they have extremely heavy call volume, right? Their first priority in those situations is connect call. Secondly, followed up by the caller ID, the actual phone number, and then the CNAME is the last thing. So if they're feeling constrained because of heavy call volume, CNAME is the first thing they drop because they want to get that call through first and foremost. And then one other minor concern, if you're ever calling someone who can program their own phone, right, so they label your phone number in their device, that local device programming will always supersede anything we send to the phone. All right, the company emergency, E911 address. So whenever someone picks up a VoIP phone, by default, this is the address that will be sent to emergency services. So one, you want to make sure this address is correct. And then you click Save Changes. You can change it by device. So if you have users in different locations, they can have their own E911, so when they call, they have the correct, or emergency service get to the right place. Hold music. So Dash does allow you to upload your own hold music. It accepts .mp3 and .wav files up to 1 megabyte in size. First thing and most important probably to realize about uploading music files to a phone service is when you listen to audio over a phone, it's a mono device, right? It's only got one speaker. So when you upload an audio file, you want to make sure that you've recorded it in mono, not in stereo. So I typically use Audacity whenever I'm dealing with audio files, and by default, if I'm making a new file, it puts it in stereo because that's what most people listen to via their computer. So you have to make sure when you're encoding, put it in mono. In terms of hold music for Dash, your typical customer experience is going to be they call your number and they just hear ringing until your greeting plays. Okay? The hold music is not while they're waiting to connect someone. It's after they've already connected to one of your staff members, and then on their VoIP phone, your staff member presses the hold button. This is the default music that plays if they don't have one set up on their user. If you've already uploaded files, you can also select from a pull down here. And then you would click Save Changes. All right, let's go to Hours, which is part of the main number section. So by default, new accounts start off as 24-hour open office, meaning, hey, you're open for business, your calls are going through. Most people choose to do custom office hours. So for each day of the week, you put a check mark to say, hey, I'm open. And then over here to the right in these boxes, you select your open hours in 24-hour time. At the very bottom here, you can put a check mark here. If your whole office or store is closed for lunch, you just put a check mark there, and then you enter your lunch hours, and again, in 24-hour time. You can set up your office holidays in advance. You click on Add Holiday. You got single day, a date range, and advanced. All right, so single day would be like right here for President's Day. You put the month, the date, and you would click Save Changes. Now, for holidays, just bear in mind that there's no option to put a year in, which is kind of important for the date ranges. And in fact, you have this entry here. So for a date range for Christmas, right, I'm here December 22nd to the 26th, which is fine. It's in the same year. But like this one says here, beware New Year's Eve to New Year's Day. If you have a date range that covers December 31st and it goes to January 1st, the system does not handle that well and puts you in closed mode. Because it says, oh, you're closed all year. So in that case, we say, make a single day entry for New Year's Eve and then for New Year's Day. And then if you're closed beyond that or before that, put date ranges beforehand. All right, and then advanced, right, the second Monday of March, we're closed. Annual company retreat, for example. And then click on Save Changes. All right, incoming call handling. So this is how the system is going to handle your calls that come in on your main numbers. And then you have these sub-tabs. So during your open hours, during your lunch hours, because I said we're closed from 12 to 1, after hours, meaning after the business day, and then holidays. Obviously, if you don't select lunch hours, that tab won't be there. And if you say you were open during holidays, this tab would also not be here. All right, so then you've got these three same options here. So first option, call comes in, goes to the virtual receptionist. This basically means call comes in. When they get to the virtual receptionist, you're going to want a main greeting to play to give your customer instructions. They press menu options or extensions. Middle option, call comes in. You can have it go to a user. You can have it go to groups. You can have it go to devices, media files, and ACD queues. So basically what you're trying to do, in general, most people use this for is to send it to a group or to a person. So basically give someone a chance to answer the call first. If no one's able to pick up, then it goes to the virtual receptionist so the inbound caller can press menu options or extension numbers. And then this option here, call comes in, goes to, again, a person or a group, etc. If no one able to pick up, goes to voicemail. And you actually have an option here to send it right there. Skip to voicemail. Like, don't even bother, just go right to voicemail. So, for instance, that would be for like a tax prep company after tax season's over. All right, let's go back over here and take a look at the virtual receptionist because this is a link. Hopefully, there we go. So on your left-hand side, this is your main menu. Right? Press 1 for sales, 2 support. This is where you set up those options. Pretty straightforward is you click Add a Route. You pick the menu. Oops. Not sure why some of the pull-downs work and others don't on this interface. Anyway, you have between 0 and 9 to choose from. and then you'll have either particular users, ring groups, or queues to choose from for each of the menu options. And then over on the right, you have your greeting options. All right. Text to speech, type in what you want to say, click save, or click update here rather. And then you would click save here and then save changes. Upload your own file, again, .wav, .mp3, make sure it's recorded in mono. 1 megabyte MP3, for example, is roughly 5 minutes. Choose from existing recordings if you've already uploaded files. You can choose from here. Record it over the phone. Basically, the system is saying, hey, pick up one of your VoIP phones, call into your main number, enter this PIN number, and then it will guide you through recording your greeting. Now, if you already have a greeting set, so like I have a text-to-speech one already set on this account, it won't guide me through it. But I can still call in. While that main greeting is playing, I can enter this PIN, and then it'll say, oh, what do you want to, then it'll start walking me through recording. Now, one thing to keep in mind is for this PIN number, or recording this greeting over the phone, it is tied to that particular time of day. So right now, I'm in open hours, so I can only change over the phone right now my open hours greeting. If I want to do my after hours greeting, I have to wait for after hours to kick in or manipulate my system to put me in after hours while I make a recording and then put it back. All right, we have professional recordings. Services, we've partnered with another company called Snap Recordings. If you click order here, it'll take you to their site. The advantage of them is they have over 100, or over 80 at least, voice actors to choose from between male and female. They have different versions of English, like Australian English versus UK English, as well as American English. They have Spanish, and they have French. And you can do bilingual. They have packages. You can just do a single greeting. You can do packages. You can do a combination of a script with music, so you can make your own custom on hold. Oh, and then lastly, right down here, let's there. Settings. Basically, number of retries on missed dial. So when your customer calls in and they hit the wrong number, and then they hit it again, right? This is how many times you're giving them to basically misdial. Either hit the wrong number or not do anything. Now, one of your menu options here is a default route, right? So if they keep hitting the wrong thing and you have a default route selected, gosh, I can't talk today, and you can choose to send it like voicemail box, etc. Up to you if you want to do that. With the Ryzen robo-dialers, I've been recommending customers to not do that. Basically make that inbound call or press the menu option to get to someone. That way you know, hey, there was a real person there trying to call you. Right. But if you make any changes, you click Save here, and then you click Save Changes here. You have to do both to make sure all those changes take effect. I know we've had a couple of cases where customers only saved one or the other, and like their greetings didn't take, or in some cases their main number started ringing busy. You have your fax box number here, and then you can edit your fax box. Now, unfortunately, this fax box is not currently working properly, but it'll pop up a new window, and you can enter. You have two fields. The first one is, hey, who's getting the notifications for a new fax, right? So put in their email address. The second box is to enable outbound permissions. So you can set a single email address if you want, or if your company has its own domain, so like at virtualpbx.com, you could put the @ virtualpbx.com in that second field, click Save. Then anyone with a VirtualPBX email could then send out a fax. even if they're not a user on the account. They just need to know the correct format. All right, we'll go over to numbers. So numbers basically shows numbers in use, right? All the numbers I'm using and where they're going. And then spare numbers, hey, these are numbers you have in your account, but you're not using them for right now. Most common reason for having spare numbers is you got like a block of numbers that were in sequence, and you want to hold on to some of them yet because you're not using them yet. Or you used to use a number for like a special program or a product, and then that product, you discontinued the program or product. You're like, well, it's a good number, let's keep it, but we're going to put it in spare so callers don't keep coming through asking us about stuff that's no longer around. Also, under spare numbers, you have this option here to port. So port is an industry term to move a number from one carrier to another. So from AT&T to VirtualPBX. So you can actually start the port process with in-dash. Basically, it comes down to you need to upload an LOA, a letter of agency, and a copy of your bill. That gets submitted to our porting department, and they begin the porting process. Or you can just simply email those two documents to porting@virtualpbx.com, and again, they'll process the porting process. In either case, you should get emails saying, hey, we got your documents. Here's what to expect in the porting process, and our porting team will update you as information is made available to us. Basically, when you're porting a number to us or to any carrier, right, whoever you're porting to should be in charge of communicating to you what is going on. However, it's the carrier it's coming from that's ultimately releasing the number, right? So they have still, until they give up that control, it's up to them. Let's go to users. All right, users. So you can see all your users, their names, their extensions, the ones that have phone numbers, their devices, and their features. Up here, you can add a user. Again, you fill out the form. Name. The email address has to be unique for each user. Right? So if you use support@virtualpbx.com, that's great for one person. But if you wanted, Bob, Mary, and Jane to all be separate users, they all can't use support@virtualpbx.com to log in because you can only use it for the first person. Now, you could just use support 1 and support 2, right? They might not be legitimate email addresses as far as your email service is concerned, but it would get them into Dash. The downside is if they try to do password recovery, they're never going to get the email to recover their passwords. Main extension. So the system, I defaulted this account to use extension 1000. You can change it to whatever. And in fact, I can change this user to be a totally different extension. Like I can start it at 2000 if I wanted to. There's no limitation there. Here's your check mark to include in user directory, and you can change that at any time. Send emails to an alternate address. So this is in addition to that first email address, right? So this is, I want to send it to Bob's personal email address just in case. And then this one is the most important one, is send the credentials to the user, i.e. they have a legitimate email address, you create them, here's how you log in. And then you would click on create user. Okay. All right. So if you click on a user's name, you can see their name. Change credentials. Let's you change their passwords. I.e., hey, Bob keeps having trouble logging in. Let's make a new password for him. Voicemail box PIN, 4-digit code. Pretty straightforward. Now, if you have any staff members who want to set up their voicemail boxes, but they only have a cell phone, the voicemail box does need to have a PIN number before they call in. If they have a VoIP device on their user, they don't need to have a PIN. They can just hit *97, and then the system will ask them to set up a PIN at that time. All right, here's that send to alternate email address again, and then here's the option to include in user directory. Over here on the right, this pull down actually allows you to change a user to an admin, or vice versa. So basically, you want to give them the rights so they can add people, etc. This is your time zone. So use your account default, but if you know they're in a different area of the world, you can select the correct spot. This is the language. English, French, or Russian are your options. Ringing timeout in seconds. So by default, when we send a call to this user, how much time do you want it to ring? Right? The default is 20 seconds. If your user that you're dealing with is primarily just using cell phone devices, so they're just receiving calls on a cell phone, you want to make sure this ring duration is at least 30 seconds, up to a minute should be fine. Anything less than that, what may happen is your user may get a call. They may hear it ring once, but they don't have enough time to actually pick up the call. Or they're like, oh, my phone said I have a missed call, but it never actually rang. Or they get the voicemail notification. Well, my phone never rang. Well, it's because there wasn't enough time. It comes down to it simply takes longer to route a call to a cell phone than it does to, say, a landline or a VoIP phone, generally speaking. And then the main extension number is the extension associated with this user, i.e. for voicemails, etc. Speaking of extensions, you can always change the unassign an extension number. You can give it a new extension. Users can have multiple extensions if necessary as well. Phone numbers. This is a number that goes directly to the user. So bypasses going through your main menu and your virtual receptionist, for example, but instead goes, in this case, straight to Bob. So for like your salespeople, they can have a business card with that phone number. So hey, just call me and we'll work out a deal. Right? You don't have to have a phone number for every user. You do need a main number, but that's about it. Devices. This is where you add devices to a user. So add from spare means you already have devices on the account. You're just like, oh, I'm going to reuse this phone. Let me put it on Bob. Right? Like you had a phone in the closet. It's already on the account. You're like, here, Bob, use this phone, plug it in, and then you assign the phone to Bob. Or you're like, oh, we got brand new phones. All right, so SIP phone, right? VoIP phone. This is a physical desk phone. These manufacturers, and I'm still not sure what that is, are the ones that we know that support auto provisioning on Dash, or that we support for auto provisioning on Dash. What that means is like you can click on your manufacturer, you click on the model of the phone, you enter in a name, and then on the back of the phone there's a sticker with MAC or serial number. It's a unique address for each phone. You enter that information, and then you click on Create Device. Okay, why won't it let me close? Hold on a minute. Fine, we'll do it the hard way. Anyway, once you create the device, then you just have to go into that device's UI, change a couple things. The phone will reboot, and then it's good to go. This contrasts with, say, a third-party device where you basically have to go in and reprogram the device all the way through. Let's get back to users. All right, cell phone and landlines, pretty easy. You give it a name, and then you put +1 area code and phone number. You click on Create Device. Now, when Dash sends calls to these a cell phone or a landline, it's pretty straightforward. We send the call, your cell phone rings, you pick up. At that point, you'll hear the system say, "This is a forwarded call. please press 1 to accept the call. You press 1, you start talking to the other person. If you don't press 1, right, the system isn't going to connect the call to your cell phone, and instead eventually either send it to a different device on your user or send it to your dash voicemail, i.e., you're in the middle of an important meeting with whoever. You can't take a business call right now. You let it go to voicemail. Now, if you don't want that, you can go under Advanced, put a check mark in front of this first option, allow use of cell phone's voicemail. So what that means is now when Dash sends a call to your cell phone, you just have to pick up and you can start talking. Right? You don't have to press 1 anymore. And if for some reason you aren't able to pick up and your cell phone voicemail picks up, that inbound caller ends up on your cell phone's voicemail. Some people love that, some people don't. The other reason you would select this is if you're sending calls to an automated answering service, right? So an automated answering service can't press 1 to accept the call, right? It has an auto greeting usually. That's why it's automated. So you put this in, picks up, and again, the call is forwarded successfully. Right. Keep original caller ID. So if this is checked, that means on your cell phone or landline, you get that inbound caller's caller ID. Right. If you uncheck it, then what you get instead is the phone number they called into. So if they called one of your main numbers, for example, that main number shows up on your cell phone. So you know, oh, this is a work call. And then hide from contact list basically doesn't show up on your user directory. Soft phone. You should read the disclaimer. You open this up. So by default, this starts you off as if you're adding a third-party soft phone. So X-Lite from Counterpath, for example. Or you could also use this to set up a VoIP phone that doesn't show up on that list under a SIP device or SIP phone. In either case, then you would give it a name, and you would use this SIP username and then the SIP password and the realm to program that either that piece of software or that VoIP phone. If you're going to use the VirtualPBX soft phone, then you would want to click there and then give it a device name and then create device. Since I'm on a user, when I hit create device, it'll automatically send that user an email with here's your login information and the download link. If you're going to use a desktop version of the soft phone, you do need to order one. There's a license fee associated with it. And once that's paid for, then you get the link. The web phone, again, has to be associated with the user, so this is the best place to add it from. Click close. Give it a name. You click create device. Once you've done that, you can make use of the web phone. I know for sure it works on Chrome and Firefox. We just had a recent update, and I haven't played with it enough yet to know if it works with other browsers. But again, you can make and receive calls from your web browser. You can put people on hold, you can transfer, etc. Landline, just like cell phone. Fax and ATA. So fax would be a digital fax machine. I don't know of a single customer who's made use of it. And then an ATA would be for an ATA adapter. Basically, you want to use an analog device over your network. Usually, we recommend people use third-party soft phone to program those devices instead of trying to do it this way. It can be a bit problematic. Right. User features. Okay. The caller ID number, this only is available if your user has their own phone number. Right. So Bob does. So he's got caller ID number. Basically, it's on or off. If it's on, you basically say, hey, I'm going to use my own phone number as my caller ID when I make outbound calls. Right. If they don't have their own phone number, they're just going to use your main company number. Call forwarding. This is for VoIP users. So, first and foremost, if you want an offer on, or you can have, this was new, it was relatively new, it's failover mode. So if your VoIP phone users, if their VoIP phone loses connection, right? There's an internet outage, or someone tripped on a cable and suddenly your network is down, or part of your network is down. Then the failover mode for call forwarding would come into play. So call comes into that user, can't go to a VoIP phone because it's no longer connected, but instead it would automatically send it to, say, a desk phone or a mobile phone. You put the +1 area code and number, call gets sent to that device. Key thing to remember for call forwarding, whether you're in failover mode or you just put it on, is that the device you're forwarding to, the cell phone or landline, cannot be a device already on the user. So they primarily use the VoIP phone, and then on those times when they're not going to, they make use of call forwarding to that device. Hot desking, this is another VoIP feature. If you enable, basically this is if you're in a shared office environment where people switch desks from day to day. This allows them to log into the phone at the desk they happen to be sitting at that day, so they still get calls that are sent to their user. So, Tuesday, I'm at desk, letter F. I sign into the phone. I get my calls. At the end of my shift, I sign out of that phone. And that's you would use the hot desk ID. You'd give it a 4-digit number, typically. Right? Wednesday, I come in. Oh, I'm not going to desk F because, Mary's already sitting there. So we're going to go over to desk number T. Here we go. Open seat, take it, log into the phone. Again, I still get my calls. Voicemails, every user automatically gets a voicemail box created. That voicemail box, by the way, is a special voicemail box. It's tied intrinsically with that user, so don't delete it. Fax box, users can have their own individual fax boxes. In general, if you have a main fax box, that's fine. Where did my mouse go? There we go. Wow. So you can have faxes go to a specific phone number, so basically a phone number specific to this fax box on this user, which is the recommended way of doing it. You can also assign it to an extension, and the system says, well, here are the extensions that you're using. You need to enter one. Now, the downside of doing it this way is, at least from my personal experience, when I went to a fax machine, I go up, I enter the number, scan the document, I hit start fax, and I walk away. Right? I'm like, it'll go through, or it won't, or whatever. I'll come back and check. If you have it go to an extension, in this particular case, on the user, you have to be able to train the people who are faxing to you to call a main number. Then they enter the extension that they're faxing to. Then they hit start fax. Follow me, not going to make the best sense on this. We'll go here. All right, so follow me as if when you have multiple devices. So by default, anytime you open up with a new device that you've added, it starts off as do not ring. So you want to uncheck that. And then you click and drag the device in terms of how long you want it to ring. You can click distribute to have them ring in sequence. You can extend the sliders so they all ring at the same time, or at least part of the same time. You can also click and drag to change the order of the devices. Up here, that's your total ring time for these devices. This would supersede that ring time on the user because, you have follow me settings enabled because you have multiple devices. Default is actually 120, so we've changed it to 240 on this one at some point. All right, music on hold. Users can have their own hold music. Again, .wave, .mp3 in mono. And then customize call recording. So you don't have to make use of call recording, but if you want to, you would turn it on for each of these types. Now, inbound internal means this user gets a call from someone else on the account, another user, right? Inbound external means a call comes to this user from a customer, right? Then outbound internal means I'm calling another user on the account. Outbound external means I'm calling a customer back. All right. Next up, we have groups, shorthand for ring groups. Basically, calls that go to a department or a group of people who answer or dealing with calls of a similar nature. Creating a group, pretty straightforward. Give it a name. And then you give it an extension number. And then you click and drag people into the group. And then you click on Create Group. So the extension number is so your staff members can transfer a caller to that ring group on their own. And generally speaking, people could actually enter that extension from the main menu, potentially, although typically the system would prefer that you would have a menu option for it. If you click on the name of the group, again, you can always change the name. And then you have this option here for dialing repeats with little arrows to the right. All right, so you can click that. Basically, this is how many times that inbound caller can ring through to your staff members in the group. Right? So if you have it set to once, that means it's only going to ring people in the group once. Twice means it's going to try them twice. And you click on Save Changes. If you click on the Members box, now that's kind of annoying. Let's go back up here so I can see everything properly. There we go. All right, so we can remove that person because they're no longer on the account. So, oops. Here you can, again, you can distribute, get the calls. You can click and drag people around to change the order and then redistribute. And you can, again, move the sliders around depending on what you want to do. And then you would click on Save Changes. Oops. Actually, forgot to cover one thing on this page for sure. Right up here, that's your ring duration for the callers, for inbound callers into the group. One thing to keep in mind, excuse me, is if the people in a ring group are on a call, they'll still be offered calls if a second call comes into that ring group, right? So if Duke is already talking to somebody and a call comes into a ring group that he's in, he'll hear a call waiting beep on his phone. So that can be a little frustrating for people. All right, you got the extension number here. You can always add additional extension numbers for unassigned, etc. Groups can have a phone number that rings directly to them. And then you have, oops, wrong box. Then we have got group features. All right, call recording, on or off. It's basically you're recording all the calls that come into the group or you're not. Ringback, this is essentially the hold music for the group. So basically, as long as that inbound caller is waiting for someone to pick up, this is the file they'll hear. The main thing you want to do is make sure that the file that you choose has a duration at least equaling the ring time of the group. So on this group is 120 seconds. You would want to make sure that file is 120 seconds long. Next action. If no one picks up in the group, what do you want it to do? You can send it back to your main menu, right? So your open hour, in this case, open hours, or you would send it to a voicemail box or a user or a device. Typically, I recommend just sending it to a voicemail box as it makes the most sense. Or the main menu, so people can try to reach someone else. Right. The devices page basically shows all your devices on the account. You can add devices here. You should not add a web phone on this page just because you need to associate it with the user. And then for the soft phone, if you're adding the VirtualPBX soft phone, again, you want to add it to the user. Typically speaking, what's happening here is most people use this page for add VoIP devices, like they're setting up a new office. So they have the VoIP phones, but they're not sure who they go to yet. But they can at least get, your IT people can get all the phones added and then move them to later when the office is fully set up and people are moving into their desks. Voicemail boxes, these are all the voicemail boxes on the account. Notice that the ones that are users, they already have a voicemail box and there's their name on the user field here. And then up here, for instance, the main voicemail box does not have a user. You can always create additional voicemail boxes here. This would be, for instance, used for your groups, right? You're like, oh, let me put a special voicemail box just for this ring group. Oops. Okay, we can click on one of these so you can see the options. When you manually create one, you will need to upload a greeting file. Otherwise, you need to set up a PIN to record it over the phone. You're going to want to add recipients to a manually created one, so that way you get notified when voicemails are left. Already set up. Basically, once you have a greeting set, you can check this. Require PIN, basically, to log in. Auto login is typically for VoIP phone users to log into their own voicemail boxes. And then we do recommend delete after notification. Basically, once the system has sent you that email address, or your voicemail to the email that you have associated with this voicemail box, delete the voicemail on the system. Your account can have up to 100 voicemails. And then after that, inbound callers will get a message saying the voicemail box is full. So if you just tap delete after notifications, you likely won't get to that filled up point. Feature codes. These are basically the equivalent of keyboard shortcuts for VoIP phone users. Basically star and a combination of keys to make use of different features like call forwarding. If you're making use of queues, you can log in and out of the queue yourself, as well as hot desking, etc. And these feature codes are actually on the VirtualPBX main site under Dash Support, so you don't have to log in to get them, or your staff can just find them and print them out, etc. Call logs. This is your, well, on a test account, there's basically, actually there might be one. There we go. Basically shows you the calls that came into your system or out. Like originator cancel says that inbound caller hung up before anything could get to anyone. Normal clearing means the system said the call ended normally. There wasn't anything special about it. You can click on a call to see some additional information. The little gear icon here, for example, will give you a lot of technical information, which even I'm still working on trying to understand fully. All right. Over here in the top right, we have this 3 horizontal line icon. This is a more, I guess, macro navigation. So we're on the dashboard right now. Next up is queues. So if you have ACD queues on the account, these are $30 per queue per month. These are basically ring groups with muscle, essentially. So if we click on settings, adding a queue is right up here, but it gets you to the same. There we go. All right, queue name. You can give it a phone number, its own phone number, or an extension number. the queue routing strategy. So this one's on most idle, meaning whoever's been waiting for the call the longest will get the next call that comes in. You also have round robin, which is essentially random. Should even out over time, although it can be a little strange at times, at least from my experience. Like there have been days I feel like I get every call first. That's probably just my perception. The other two routing options are least calls, meaning the least amount of connected calls, right? So Mary has talked to 5 people. Bob has spoken to 2. The next call that comes in goes to Bob. And the fourth option is least offered. So you can use Mary and Bob again. Mary has been offered 5 calls. She answered all 5. Bob's been offered 20 calls, only answered 2. But because he's had the most offers, Mary would get the next call that came in because you're under the least offered routing option. Hold treatment, basically hold music, and you can upload your own file. Again, .wav, .mp3 in mono. Queue timeout, measured in seconds. How much time can people wait on hold? Queue limit, if you put 0, that means there's no limit, but you can limit the number of people who can wait on hold. Timeout immediately if empty. Basically, if you have no staff logged in, just automatically time everyone out, meaning what happens next if no one answered the call. So you can have an escalation queue, meaning you have a second queue that you could send the callers to, like an overflow queue. You can also use escalation queues as a way to have skills-based ranking, where the first queue, these are the people you want to take a call all the time, right? These are your primary people to answer calls. And then a second queue where, okay, these are my backup people. So if my first group is all busy, calls could overflow into the second queue. If you have this on none, then this one takes place basically escalation call flow after timeout, and where do you want to send it? Typically to a voicemail box. Over here, agent behavior. So agent recovery time, basically after an agent has received a call and completed it, so they hung up, measured in seconds, is how much time they have between their offer to call again. So basically in this case, Mary gets off the call. She's got 30 seconds before she'll be offered another call so she can have a glass of water, finish her notes. Oh, okay, maybe more of a sip of water. But, finish her notes, catch her breath, etc. Force away on missed or rejected if you enable it. Basically, if an agent isn't able to answer a call, the system will automatically put them in away mode, meaning that the agent themselves have to mark themselves available again to get calls. And then agent connects timeout, basically how much time is the system offering a call to a particular agent. All right. Blacklists. This is a feature where you can block callers from calling into your system. So you click Edit Blacklist. You would click Add to create a new one, or if you already have one, you could just click on it to edit it. Change the name. Block Anonymous means if there's no valid caller ID, the blacklist would apply. And then here you would put +1 area code and phone number for any numbers that you don't want to connect to your system. Right, so you know the number of person who calls in and harasses you, or your staff, put the number in here. You click Save. You go back to Settings. And then you click and drag that list over into Selected and click Update. So now when those phone numbers try to call your system, they get a busy signal. I moved that back just for convenience sake. As an admin, you have access to the fax manager. This means you can get to any fax box on the account, both inbound and out. And most importantly, you can get to the email to fax log, so you can see what happened on a fax that didn't go out. The monitor, I believe we're no longer offering. Recordings, this goes to call recording storage page. Basically, you would log in and you can listen to recordings or delete them. User portal. This is what your standard users, i.e. your non-admins, see by default. Admins obviously can get there for their own user portal, so they can check their voicemails, they can see their call history, any faxes. The contact list is basically the user directory. Their conferencing. So if you have conferencing enabled, this allows the users to control their conferences. Right? So you can invite people. You can lock a conference, so no more new people can come in. You can mute everybody. You can unmute everybody. You can end the conference. When you actually have a conference going, under participants, each participant, you can actually mute them yourself, or you can kick them out. But probably the most common thing people would do would be under settings devices, because they can enable their own call forwarding from here, and then where they want it to go. Voicemails, you can get to the voicemail manager, meaning you can get to any voicemail on the account. And then the last option here is webhooks. This allows you to make use of APIs to hook Dash into other software. And basically it's up to you to program that appropriately. And that is everything on Dash. I do apologize for the technical difficulties. We're still ironing them out on this newer system that YouTube's having, or making us use now, I guess I should say. Feel free to sign up again or come back for a future session. We do have a recorded session on our website. I don't know if we can get there from... But basically, you go to virtualpbx.com and then go under support and then Dash support. There'll be 3 videos there, and the new user training is the full training for all the features. But beyond that, this session is done. So I thank you for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day.